Hello, everyone. I'm LeiLani Cauthen, the CEO of the news media and research organization, the Learning Counsel. Also a proud EduJedi Grand Master, which is a really big deal. You know, the EduJedi Leadership Society started this whole thing with a dictionary of curriculum terminology about 6 years ago. It's been being upgraded ever since. It started out with 71 definitions. It's up to over 200 now. Today's activity is Digital Instructional Design, the Teacher Challenge. So I have with us a lot of you instructional professionals. And I think we just also had, who just joined? Derek and maybe one other person. Let me see, who do I have? I'm going to do a roll call first, make sure who's who, and I'm going to show my next screen. Tricia, you're here? There you are, Tricia. Hi, nice to have you from all the way from Florida. And Maureen, you're here. Hi. From Oak Park and River Forest High School, Illinois. And then Terri Vest, who's from Twinfield Union in Caledonia up in Vermont. And Derek Travis. Is Derek here? Derek, there you are. Hi. Hi, Derek. Who's also from Volusia in Florida. Drew Williams. Do we have Drew yet? Looks like we're waiting on Drew. And then we also have with us Dr. Renu Singh. Hi, Dr. Singh, who's from Phoenix Union High School down in Arizona. Yeah, good to have you. And then Brandon Burns, Clinton County. Hi, Brandon. Jenny Combs. Is she here yet? Jenny? No, not yet. And then Jill King also. Hi, Jill. Good to have you.
Look, Jenny Combs is here with me. We're in the same class, so that's why you don't see her picture, but she's here.
Okay, good. She can sort of peek her head in like this once in a while. Yeah. Okay, good. Well, hi to both of you. Thanks for being with us. And we also have with us Dr. Wendy Oliver, who's the Chief Learning Officer from Edison Learning. So Edison is here to give us a little bit of the professional grade digital understanding, how commercial grade instructional design is done, so we can sort of understand that too. So I think what I want to do is I want to show you what we're going to get into today, everyone, before I show off Edison. What we're going to get into is this model. So we're going to compare Addie's to the two EduJedi models, and then we're going to talk about these two models and also the forms for submitting some designs against these models, some lesson plan that you dream up against these two models. This is the first one, and then there's a second one that's the workforce model. So we'll talk about those. And once you make those submissions, you'll give us a couple weeks, and then we're going to award the first, second, and third prize. The first prize is $2,000. The second prize is $1,500. The third level prize is $1,000. The basic is that we need to actually flow that money through your school or district legally. So you might want to make sure that that's ready to go. So let's talk about first what Edison has really been up to. Let's give a little intro to Edison because they're going to interject to show some of the function we're talking about. Like you can do it on your own. You could use their system kind of thing, but they're going to be talking about the terms in these design models with a little show and tell so that we all understand everything. So Wendy, can you give us a little intro?
Sure. LeiLani, thanks so much for allowing us to be part of the discussion today. I'm so excited about today's session because we get to have some fun and actually work with teachers who are designing lessons. We represent the commercial side of the house and we get to do design all day long. So Edison Learning has been around for almost 3 decades, and that's hard to believe in online learning. But we develop courses and then we offer them by partnering with districts. And we also have a full-time teaching staff as well. We offer almost 150 courses in grades 6 through 12 that are accredited and NCAA approved. And then we have a teaching staff. We have teachers certified in multiple states, and we work with districts all across the country. So we are really excited to be here and can't wait to show you some examples of some of the concepts that we're going to talk about today, because there's definitely a difference when you design lessons for digital as opposed to a traditional classroom.
Thank you for that. And also you actually have your system use teachers that are already in the school, right?
Yes, we do.
Okay. All right. So this is one of your screenshots. And this I wanted to just mention when we talk about workflow, you'll notice, and this is true of some LMSs and some other systems that are out there, certainly true of full courseware that you can purchase for like math and language and all those things. But notice the navigation in it. It's directing the students' attention in a certain linear way. Oh, good. Derek Travis, you're here now. Hi, Derek. Good to have you. Oh, I was just given a note. I thought maybe I already knew you were here, but okay. People put notes in front of my face to make sure I know who's here and who isn't. All right. So I'm going to move on to just making sure we allow all of you to introduce yourselves just really briefly so that we can talk about what we're going to do with this design model and answer everybody's questions. So Tricia, you want to go first?
Sure. My name is Tricia Aylward. I am here, like she said, in Volusia County Schools. I've been here 16 years. Got my master's in instructional design and technology at UCF with my professor Glenn Gunter and think of the other guy that we have a nickname for him, but I can't remember his name. But yeah, a lot of work, and I basically I'm the Canvas admin for Volusia County Schools, so we build templates and things like that for our teachers to use to help them with the design process of their digital platform.
Perfect. Perfect.
Is that what you were looking for?
Yeah, that's perfect. I'm going to go next to Derek since he's from the same district as you. Derek, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Derek Travis. I work with Tricia, who I'm in the same room, and she has her volume on very loud. But I work a little bit with Canvas and designing courses and things like that with Tricia. But then I'm also out in the classrooms and the schools a lot to kind of work with the teachers and use that actually in classrooms. So I kind of work with the integration part as well in the classroom.
Perfect. Okay. All right. All right. So let's go to Maureen. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Maureen Miller. I am the Director of Instructional Technology at Oak Park and River Forest High School in Illinois. We are just west of the city. This is my first year in this role, and they've actually just split off the instructional tech piece from the Executive Technology Director, so that I oversee the library, the makerspace, and instructional tech team. And I partner specifically with the Assistant Superintendent of Student Learning. So my job and the teams I supervise is to help teachers integrate technology into their lessons in more effective ways. So this is kind of right in our wheelhouse of what we're trying to do, because, you know, the article that you shared talked about shoehorning, you know, old lessons, digital stuff into old lessons, and that's not really what we want to do. We are really advocating for student voice and choice, for students to show what they know, and to be allowed the freedom to do so.
That's perfect. Good. Okay, good. All right. So now we have Terri.
I'm Terri Vest, and I'm a teacher. I'm about to start my 39th year of teaching. I work at Twinfield Union School, which is in Vermont. Those of you that don't know Vermont, my school is not uncommon. It's a pre-K-12. We have just over 400 students. So it's a very different kind of system from that many of you are working in. And it means a lot of limited resources. So for us, part of what I do is I'm the connection between the school and Vermont Virtual Learning Cooperative, which provides Vermont students with online services. A lot of what I do is teach supplemental classes. When you have a school that has 120 kids in the high school, you don't offer AP psychology at school. So that's, for me, the big thing for us with online is how much it has expanded our schools beyond the walls.
Perfect. Good. I'm grateful for your intro. All right. So now we have also Drew joined us. Hi, Drew Williams.
Hello, sorry I'm late.
So, okay. Can you give us a little intro?
Sure. My name is Drew Williams, and I am an instructional coach at Lone Star Middle School in the Nampa School District, just outside of Boise, Idaho. We're the third largest district in the state, and we are a one-to-one device district. This is our fourth year as a school having one-to-one devices for students. I started my role coaching as a technology coach. I think my title was like personalized learning coach, and we were really emphasizing voice and choice and using technology in meaningful ways to help students create rather than just consume. But our district has sort of streamlined our coaching program so that we're no longer tech coaches or standards-based grading coaches. We're just coaches, which I appreciate because technology is just part of what we use to learn, and it's really built into our school culture at this point. And so I partner with teachers to create learning experiences that are meaningful.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for joining us. All right, so we also have Dr. Renu Singh from Phoenix Union. Hi.
Hi,
There we
everyone.
go.
Because today my camera has chosen to act differently. So
It looks like you're in a disco, Renu. You're in a disco. Yeah.
So I'm going to close the camera and do my introduction.
Okay.
This works. So hi, my name is Renu Singh, and I am with the Phoenix Union High School District since 2001. And, at this point of time, I'm heading the Gifted and Talented Academy. And from the very beginning, technology was a big part of our curriculum, as well as the school, micro school development. So we use technology with the district help of the EOS personnel for all our PLC work, creating template for teachers and how to approach different content. Also, the teachers use it extensively for differentiation, for personalization, individualization, because that was a big component of our accelerated project-based personalized curriculum. During this pandemic, actually, our team was very much comfortable in transitioning to distance learning because they had those resources, and district was provided us with multitude of digital resources as well. And so the teaching and learning and student engagement were high even during pandemic time. And now when we are back in person, we are using all these like Microsoft 365 team platform plus Nearpod with in-person discussion and activities. And it is unfolding in a very beautiful manner, for both for teachers as well as for us, for the students.
Excellent. Good to hear that. All right, so let's introduce Brandon Burns. Brandon?
Hey, I am Brandon Burns. Hopefully soon, Dr. Brandon Burns, if I can get this paper done. I am the Instructional Technology Director for a small district. I think it was Terri that said hers is about 400. Mine is just shy of 700, so we have about 650 students in the district. We're in a pretty good situation. We've been on this path for about 5 years now, and so we've really come a long way. One of the perks of being in a small district is that there's a lot less red tape to cut through. So when we're making what I would consider big changes, we've got a table of 5 or 6 people that can make those happen relatively quickly. So we are currently partnered with the University of Kentucky, going through what I believe they've called their Deeper Learning Academy in the past, and they're currently calling the Next Generation Leadership Academy. They're partnered with Ted Dintersmith and What School Could Be. And so we are embarking on a journey with them that kind of fits what you guys are going over in this. So hopefully those resources will be able to help each other out. And I'm just glad to be here.
Okay, great. Good intro. All right, so now we have Jenny Combs and Jill King. I believe you guys are the same place, right?
Unmute. Hello. Okay. So I am Jenny Combs, and I am the regular education teacher here at Bridges School, covering 6 through 12, all subjects, and my teammate Jill King is our EC teacher here at Bridges. And we both have a passion for curriculum and instruction and add in technology to our lessons. So I was invited here today from Ms. King, so I will turn it over to her.
Okay, you probably have to mute yours. We learned a whole lot about technology during our COVID quarantines times. So we were definitely baptized by fire in that scenario where we have 6 through 12 alternative school students. So you can imagine how difficult it is to teach them face to face. When you have them in a virtual environment, it was very difficult to get them motivated and engaged and well. So we came up with a lot of hooks to get them involved, which included gamification. So that's one of the things that we tried to implement and to get involvement with our students.
Excellent. Good thinking. All right. So this is really great. I want to go on now to just making sure that I've introduced a couple of other people that are with us. Hold on. I'm going the wrong direction. So today we also have with us, hold on. I went the other way too far. Kelly Murtaugh. Kelly, can you wave? Hi.
Hi everybody.
Yeah, Kelly will interject, and then also Laura Grasso about sort of, professional grade stuff, so we all know what we're talking about as we go through this. But I'm going to go right into the model and make sure that we just sort of start our understanding of it. So we all know Addie's model. Anybody not familiar with Addie's model of instructional design? Nope, you all went to school. Good. So you'll notice that there's a little icon next to it. It's pretty much teacher-centric. And if you read the entire article in the dictionary about this EduJedi model, that's basically the summary of the difference between total teacher centricity, which teachers are great, but having an attitude in the EduJedi model of what the student is going to do digitally is the difference between the two models, the primary difference. So the workflow logistics design model starts with very similar to analysis and Addie's model, scoping, what are your goals? How is this all going to work? But then when you get to mapping, it's a little different, as you can see. Design's a little different, as you can see. Implementation. Then you have intersectional logistics. This is where it takes a really wild turn because you're looking at what you're tagging in systems, how the system is going to present things to the student. And then at the very end, this is wildly new. Are you going to terminate them at that end point in the system, or are you going to press a button and allow them to continue, so to speak, and let them zoom ahead? And we could have a lot of discussion about that. Now, the other lane is the discovery design model. And this is primarily a Socratic method, sort of project-based. And it acknowledges the fact that if you have digital walled gardens filled with books and resources, you can give students assignments and just let them go. They provide the thesis statement, they do the proof, they implement it, they interact with you as a teacher, and then you have to decide what it is that is the sort of final thing that the student did, and whether or not to push them back. No, you didn't get it, right? That wasn't a good expositional display of understanding the Civil War or whatever. So go back, or do you grade them and continue? So those are the two main lanes of the EduJedi model that are now acknowledging the difference in the digital universe. So let's start the discussion there. I think the best way to do this is just ask you to ask questions. What do you think? What are your comments? Rather than us trying to go through every single person, let's start there. Let's run this as a class. What are your questions?
I do have a question.
Okay.
I was curious just about the first square in the workflow logistics.
Okay.
In terms of cross-curricular. I'm wondering what opportunities people have in their spaces for that cross-curricular connections. For example, we offer a World Studies English class that's combined, but that's really the only unique experience that we have for that. So I was wondering if anyone had any organic ways for teachers to connect and bring in different content areas together.
Well, I think I'm going to ask Edison if they can show and tell on maybe something like that. Pass you the screen on that, maybe Laura, if you have something you want to show on that. This is really something that's a state uniqueness. Like some states require more cross-curricular than others, and they sort of state their goals at the district level. You know, combining your math work with your science work, language with history work. This is, when we say cross-curricular, it's really up to you how your state does it.
While Laura or Kelly looks for an example, I'll also say when I've done small learning academies in the past, there's been a lot of opportunity for those cross-curricular components. And then my guess, and we'll see what Laura or Kelly comes up with, is that we have a lot of opportunity in our PBLs for cross-curricular. You know, that happens intentionally a lot. But I'll defer to Kelly or Laura. I don't know who can get their fingers on one quicker.
Sorry, I wasn't expecting this kind of question, so I didn't have a PBL course pulled up. But one thing I can think of that we've done rather recently is in the state of Florida, especially, we're seeing a lot more of those cross-curricular standards pop up. And we actually developed, I think last year, it's called financial algebra. And it's really interesting because it's this mix of algebra standards that we see in Algebra 1 and 2, but then also these social studies standards on the economic side as well. So that's just one example I've seen. I'm not sure if Laura has anything she's thinking about too.
I can definitely give you examples of that we've been doing with our training. Nothing to see here, but I can explain. We've done a lot of cross-curricular work as far as collaboration, where we've developed a system where we have data inquiry teams, and these teams work together to focus on an area of improvement. And those teams are diverse in that they're from different curricular areas. I think we have about 9 teams of 3 to 7 teachers, and I think there's probably one team that's within a department. All the rest are cross-curricular. So we're seeing the benefits in these teachers coming together and working on this area of improvement across these different areas in which they haven't worked together as much in cross-curricularly. And that's something that's extra important when we're online and we're not in person. So there's more of that connection there. But this is something that we are definitely doing more of, and hopefully others will do this also. An example is we're doing live sessions with some of these teachers, and there's, off the top of my mind, there's a math and a science group coordinated together working on an area of improvement to address what these students need in these live sessions. So that's what we've been doing to kind of cross that area so that we can learn from each other and collaborate and give these students what they need throughout different curricular areas.
Okay, so essentially in cross-curricular, you're dealing with, I think the starting place is in most states, what are your pacing guides telling you to do? And what is your latitude? In the upper grades, most teachers are stuck with, they're that one subject. And they may not collaborate, like Edison is saying, they do behind the scenes professional commercial grade work of making those things fit together. But in most school districts, it's my experience, you don't have teacher, like the math teacher's not working directly with the language teacher all the time. So I think that that's a really good question, but it has to do sort of with, you have to start more collaboration. I don't know that many districts that are in the position to do that all the time. Right now it's been a mad scramble almost all over the nation. But that is why that's in the EduJedi model. It's just to encourage you to do cross-curricular, because pacing guards are what they are. So any other questions maybe about the mapping or what it means to onboard into appropriate level or the design part?
Hey, LeiLani, there's a question in the chat that's really a great question.
Okay. Gotta find chat. I don't see it. Can you read it out?
One of the panelists.
Maybe it was just to you.
No, I think it's to everybody. One of the panelists spoke of integration of student voice and choice, the opportunity for students to show what they know. In which step would the teacher explicitly pause to build in what students bring to the table? Assets, interests, preferences, mapping. Could you talk about how you use this or another step to connect with culturally and linguistically diverse students?
And I think that that's covered in scope at both levels of design. So in your workflow logistics, when you're setting goals, you would necessarily try to keep it culturally appropriate, keep it equitable, have some pre-thoughts on how you're going to differentiate in the entire lesson sequence. The workflow design, at least the way it's been explained to me, this is not my design, this is an EduJedi design. So other educators contributed to the creation of this design, is that the setting of the goals really has to do with knowing in advance that it's going to sequence, which is a little different than the Addis model. The Addis model is monolithic in design. It can be one lecture. Whereas this is acknowledging that you're going to digitally sequence and you're going to shunt attention around, not just in a physical classroom, but you may also have exterior students coming in remote, or you might be doing everything online. It's acknowledging that there's flow happening in the digital world. So when you get to, for example, the mapping, onboarding onto an appropriate level usually would mean that you've done some sort of pre-assessment, which a lot of courseware software does that. Systems do that. Volusia, you might be doing that in Canvas, right? Doing some pre-assessments in order to figure out like what reading level, Lexile or Quattro level, math level you have for that student. And that's telling the teacher at stage 2, their idea curation for the lesson needs to acknowledge maybe different levels that the students are in. But it's a good question.
There.
Go ahead.
This is Tricia. And like you said, yeah, we do have some of those like pre-assessments, but also with our LMS, we have what we call mastery paths. So it basically designs a path for the student based on that like pre-assessment. So if they scored this, then they would take this path. And then if they score another, in the mid-range, then they would take this path. And so it kind of like personalized that learning based on how they perform on that pre-assessment.
So you're really addressing the student agency in step 1 by allowing them to set goals. And it's almost step 1 is almost that 3-dimensional. Like you said, LeiLani, you've got online students, face-to-face students, asynchronous students all coming in, and that pre-assessment, which we have at Edison Learning, but it addresses the pacing of those students, and that feeds into the mapping in step 2. I think if I see it that way as 3-dimensional, that helps me to see a tremendous difference from Addie's model.
That's a very good point. Yeah. Because Addie's model was, you looked at learner goals, but you were just grouping everything together. It's all whole group. Whereas the EduJedi model, the teacher might look at in your Canvas system, all of the goals that students have, and then sort of meld them into a median to establish a lesson sequence, and know that they're going to be flexible around the median, but also have students set goals like Wendy, you just said. So at either level, either the workflow or the discovery design. Okay, so other questions. We just want to keep the questions rolling in. as you visualize how you're going to use the model to just sort of write a lesson plan?
I'm thinking, just looking at your discovery and design, that to me really says design thinking. Was that intentional when you guys did that? Like, that's almost the exact design thinking process.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're like the EduJedi and myself, when we were talking about the draft models, I'm a UI UX professional, right? So I was thinking very much about all the courseware I've seen, what I've done for software development. You know, that's Learning Council News Media is uniquely run by software professionals. So that's what we were thinking with, is what underneath both of these is a high awareness of user interface, a high awareness of user experience, which isn't something that Addie's discussed at all,
Right.
because it was all classroom, whole group.
I agree that in this model, we have the users in mind, and kind of it helps to differentiate or meet the student where they are in their learning path. So that's the beauty of this model. And I also saw, maybe not here, but somewhere else, that there are, yeah, here, like there is opportunity for live interaction, which brings meaning, and especially for those difficult courses, for like science courses or math, you have an opportunity to address misconception. So I'm finding these beautiful opportunities in real learning, deeper learning, student engagement, and having the end goal in the mind and user in the mind is pretty visible in this model.
And I'm really glad you said that, because that is another huge difference between Addie's and the EduJedi. And everyone should notice that on workflow at point 3, you're thinking through your alignment of live activity, which means the togetherness moment. And then step 5, you're intentionally looking at that intersection and the logistics. So what am I going to do exactly when we're together in the classroom? Now, when we were all whole group in Addie's model and everybody was in the classroom all day long, or multiple classrooms all day long, you didn't have to think about the exact precise moment of interaction. Well, you do now. You know, what are you going to do on the Zoom call? Is everybody going to be reading independently and you're just watching them read? Or are you going to try to lecture the whole time? What are you doing, right? So that intentional refinement of the teaching moment is intentional in the EduJedi model. It's not in Addie's, because it assumes you're always together. Whereas you can't really assume that now, when maybe you have some simultaneous teaching, the rest is home study, or you're in the building and you're in your own study area, or you're studying in the classroom and the teacher's doing something else, and then they call everyone together for 10 minutes of the whole class period. Okay, that's the way it runs now. So I'm really glad you mentioned that, because that intentional moment of intersection is what the software industry is attempting now to Uberize, to make very precise, so that if you have individual pathways, kids are moving along, 5 of them hit a certain point, it automatically triggers to the teacher, these kids need this lecture. So that's the kind of work that's already being done in software. Okay, so any questions on that, or more questions in other areas?
I just have a
Maureen?
quick comment. I just appreciate how this puts it in the workflow language and how it sets that up, because teachers I work with, sometimes that's the struggle, is just they feel like they're creating that workflow and that can be overwhelming for them. And we really have to sit down and clear some of that up so that their work is not so overwhelming and they can focus more on the feedback and more on the content and what they're going to do with students. So I just appreciate that organization.
Yeah, and that's what the original EduJedi were talking about, is the workload difference of pre-pandemic to now has wiped people out. Like they're like, what? Yeah. Huge, huge difference. Okay, any other comments as you guys are looking at this? Because we can get into some of the other details now. Maureen, you're looking pensive. It's okay with you? Okay. Anyone else? You know, you guys are a smart bunch. I'm super excited about all of you. All right, so let me pull something else up, and this is the original dictionary, just to point out. Traditional instructional design focuses on the teacher and what the institution and teacher does, but digital learning experience design, the EduJedi, focuses on the student and what they do. So just keep that in mind. And then these in the dictionary are the points about what's different. Now, previous events have said, you know, this is really needing to also acknowledge a training difference. Drew, like you were just saying, there's a big training difference between old models and this.
I'm going to throw out, so for me, I think one of the huge training differences was who's actually responsible for the education. And in this model, it's the student's education, it's not mine. So the teacher becomes a facilitator of learning in this model, as opposed to what we sometimes traditionally think is a teacher. I'm not there to just spout knowledge and then spit it back out. I'm there to help them figure out how to do things. And I think that design lends it, this model lends itself to that kind of design.
It's an uncomfortable thing to say, though, for a lot of teachers. But that refinement of teaching to its most precision human expression of help is absolutely what this model is trying to do. And acknowledge that workload can come off the teacher of navigating. And yes, the competition from the commercial world during the pandemic went off the charts. A median of 5 million kids left the building nationwide for additional alternatives. That's on top of the ones who had already gone. They're looking for 100% personalization or anything other than what they were getting in the public institutions. So the idea of acknowledging student agency, very powerful, Terri, very powerful.
I mentor teachers a lot. I have one right now. And our conversation actually this morning too was really what's the most important thing this student could possibly learn from me. And it's not English and it's not psychology. It's how to design a problem for themselves and solve it. And that's really what this does. So instead of me giving them everything and having them walk their way through it, I usually tell them where they should end up at the end. And now you figure out how you want to get there and I'll help you. I'll help you figure it out. I'll help you get there. Instead of telling them how to get there and hope everybody makes it to the same place.
And I think that's why there's 2 lanes here and there was only one in Addie's. Because as we go digital, we suddenly have a bajillion resources at everyone's fingertips. So comments on that, Drew, you made a comment too about student agency. You want to say anything else about that?
Yeah, just as I was listening, it was just reminding me of just how important student agency is. And that's a big thing we've worked with on teachers and just reframing it. Because you mentioned, teachers are exhausted. It's been an exhausting experience, but trying to remind them that it's not about what you do, it's about what your students do. And I'd read an article called Who's Doing the Work in Your Classroom? And it just reminded me that students should be doing the work. And if teachers are doing all the work for our students, then something's wrong. We need to reframe that. We need to remember that students doing the work is students learning. We can't do the learning for them.
Mm-hmm. It's exactly true. So I'd also like to hear from you guys who are running, Google Classroom or a big LMS, and you have 50 to 5,000 other digital resources that have varying degrees of courseware, like Edison, right? Like Edison, fully loaded curriculum pathways, right? Like do this course, boom, it's all in there. So now you've got this mental, you mostly have for teachers a mental map of, I got this system, kids got to log in over there, I got to go over there. So they're just directing, go log in here, now go log in there, now give me this essay, now do this over there. And so they're like air traffic control people. Let's talk about that in terms of workflow logistics design. Any comments? For sure. Derek, I know you're dealing with this because you probably don't just use Canvas. You might be like Houston ISD, which has over 2 million systems in place.
Actually, with ours, we pretty much are like a Canvas district. We do have Teams as kind of like a more of a communication, but our push in our district is everything, any platform that we use, like any textbook we adopt, or it's like our one roster standards is that it has to be able to integrate with Canvas. So we've done a lot of push so that on the student side, they are moving through one platform instead of having to go and, you know, I've got, you know, my science is Savas, and my reading, I have to go to reading A to Z, and then, you know, like different platforms. And so now we're trying to streamline it for students so it's all in one platform, but they get familiar with the design and the platform of that one learning management system.
Okay,
does that answer your question, or am I completely off base there?
Yeah, because you got other places. Orlando is like this, Houston ISD, Dallas ISD. They also have, like, you know, Dreambox. They might have Edison. They might have all these other sort of fully gamified courseware pieces that have levels in them, like a game. Like you finish your fractions, you get to move on to the next level of math. And they have an LMS. And the LMS sort of frames, now log in over here and do this. So it's a super system with subsystems kind of thing. And that's one of the reasons that workflow logistics was important. So anyone else want to comment on their multiplicity of systems and thinking through that workflow idea? I don't know what the situation is in all of your schools. I'm making sure if you're shy, I'll call on you like a teacher.
I'll go. I always used to say as a teacher, volunteer or victim, right? So we use Google Classroom as our LMS, and I don't really consider Google Classroom an LMS because it's not really meant to be one, but that's what they settled on before I was here. So that's what I'm living with. We use Skyward as our SIS, and we just were able to purchase an API, which allows the two to talk to each other, because prior to a week ago, teachers were double entering grades. So that'll be a help. We have teachers who want to do standards-based grading, which is awesome. But Skyward doesn't do that in a clean way. So we're looking at whether or not Google Classroom does that and then just pushes to Skyward now that we have the API. We don't have a system like a ClassLink or a Clever in place. So kids are logging on in all different places. So, you know, my work here is cut out for me in terms of just cleanup and systemization is kind of what my focus will be on for this year.
Yeah, because you lose operational continuity if there's not shared resource repositories. Everyone's on their own in Google. Yeah, that can be wild. Yeah, so the incursion of the professional grade courseware is huge in most school districts nationally. I think, Wendy, do you guys want to talk a little bit about what's happening in the professional grade side too?
Yeah, I think we'd love to. You know, I'm sorry, I was reading, and it's actually in the Q&A, LeiLani, not in the chat.
Okay.
Lynn put some additional comments over there. I don't know if you can see those, but it's
okay.
She had a pretty interesting suggestion on some additions to the model. Can you see those?
Yeah, Lynn. Yeah, so then we need to make sure we incorporate some of that. I'll take all these comments down, or have Doug do that, who's managing the event right now, just to make sure that we do that. The design step does really absolutely need to acknowledge student choice and voice, and I think that that's really the purpose of the discovery design more than the workflow logistics design. I think the original EduJedi were thinking we have to teach math, right? But then there's other subjects that are a little more fluid, and you can do more discovery things around them, where math is very, it's linear. Some of the language work is really linear. So that was one of the things. But yeah, I love all these comments. What else about that, Wendy?
Well, I would just say one of the things that jumped out to me really, the difference in the models. And number one, student agency. I love hearing all those comments about that, right? Because that's so critical. But the other thing too, the difference in the models is, with Addies, you have that finite stopping point of evaluation. And I don't know, Laura or Kelly might already have it queued, but if you could bring up where we allow the students to do a self-assessment and then hop into reteaching. I think that's a strength, and that's one thing that termination or continuance in step 6. I think that is so critical to the EduJedi model, and that certainly comes with commercial grade content, because you have the intelligence of the software to allow it to determine if a student needs to move on. Or if they're ready to move on or not based on mastery-based learning. And I think that is so important. Yeah. So you want to talk us through that, Kelly, real quickly? I know we're getting close.
Sure.
Yeah, this is good for everyone to understand. Go ahead.
Yeah. So in the main section where kids are going through our lesson, like Wendy said, we have built-in self-assessments for them. So this is just one example. But when they get through this particular lesson or learning object, the system then moves them based on mastery level to the next learning object. So if they didn't grasp these concepts the first time or with additional practice, then we have these reteachable moments where it's more information with activities and the objectives are stated throughout and more opportunities for that self-assessment again.
Yes, I think it helps to see a visual there of, okay, in digital, you don't just stop at the evaluation. There is an opportunity for reteaching and to continue on. So I just wanted to hop in there with that particular piece. And we could go on and on, but I know, LeiLani, that you maybe have a couple more things to go over about the competition, and then you're really good at staying on schedule. So I don't want to monopolize the time, but thank you.
That was really great, because it is the thinking of EduJedi to understand what's going on in software that is forcing a change in the intersection of teachers, learners, and the stuff they're using. What we call flat digital is things that only augment the 250-year-old design of whole group teaching and learning. The things that are now serious competition to public education are the things that are like what you just showed, Wendy. And they don't remove the teacher, because I think your system and a lot of other ones that are professional grade have what's called gating. So you can gate the student at the termination point or auto let them go forward, right? So the teacher has decision structure and also can put more stuff in that is uniquely theirs, right? Just like an LMS.
Yes, and I would say probably every teacher in this meeting, and LeiLani, you've heard me say this, learning how to use the gating feature was the first thing that I did when I was teaching online. Because if you don't use it, the kids skip all the content and they fail the first quiz or the first test, right? And then you learn to gate it so that they'll actually read the content and work through the practice activities. Yeah.
Yeah, no cheating and reading. And go. It's not like a book. You can't go to the last chapter and just read that. Okay, good. So I think that we've really sort of explained what these differences are, and all of you that are on the line right now are in uniquely different situations. And so how you submit your designs are going to be, and we will know this when you submit, are going to be predicated on what's real for you. Because what's real for you is real for you. Maybe you don't have something else. So we'll understand that when we're grading them. So there's two models. We'll send you, like I said, we'll send you these sheets. Oh, here, I got to share my screen. You don't even know what I'm talking about. We'll send you this one on discovery design. Okay. Very simple. It'll be a Word document. You can convert it however you want. Fill it out, talk about what you're doing, explain yourself. And then the other one is the workflow model. Add and subtract from it as you will, explain even maybe what you went through trying to do a digital design, right? A digitally designed lesson. Acknowledges using various gamifications, you know, like Jenny and Jill, you guys talked about. If you were going to use one of those in your lesson plan, just explain what it was supposed to do. We don't really need screenshots of everything, just words. Is that okay with everyone? Okay, I'm going to make sure I have everything cleared up for you, but I also want you to know you can email us. You know, use your emails like a little lifeline, like, hey, I don't get this. You know, that's totally cool. So that's the workflow model form. And then, of course, the other form is the one for discovery design. You can use either one or both. So I'm just making sure you're not all in shock and you don't know what to do right now. So ask, like, what are they talking about? Like, I just want to make sure that it's all understood and you're thinking with it. Okay?
I have a question about the discovery design model. The way I read this would be like if I was designing a lesson or a unit. Is that right?
Yeah.
And the other one is more large school.
Well, actually, the way to probably think about discovery-based design is see how the first thing in scope is it's teacher plus learner. So maybe teacher selects an area of history that needs to be studied and an outcome that's desired, right? The goal setting. But then the user gets to do the posed question and thesis. And then the user gets to go off and do their thing. And then they do you know, sort of write up of the thesis and they accumulate all their proofs. Then they go through the refinement of those proofs. This is like a project. It's like, it's not really that different than PBL. And then whatever the teacher wants for the live interaction, do you have to present it to the class? Do you present just a paper at the end? How are you doing this? There are some programs out there that allow you to preset comic books where you just drag and drop your little people into scenes, and then you create a little play out of the scenes and you present the finished digital comic book. There's all kinds of stuff like that out there, right? So those are the things that you would go through on that. And then the teacher decides that, you know, the grading, okay, you didn't get it, you got to go back. These are the main points you missed about the Civil War, right? Like, go back and start over, right? Like redo your thesis and your proof. So discovery design could also be done by a whole group rather than just an individual, right? You could do this in a classroom wide.
I've done this with small groups where the group self-chose and then they all wanted to do the same thing or the same idea. So,
yeah, essentially what we're going to be looking for here is how did you involve technology? What did technology do for the lesson? And then the same thing is going to be true, obvious, in workflow, in the workflow model. Are you using Canvas? Are you using like some gamification? Did you log into Edison? And I think Edison, Wendy, you guys are going to offer these guys logins if they want to build something off of your system.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that'd be fun.
Yeah. So we'll have you follow through. And then, you know, it's essential that you just sort of give us some answer on each of the steps, even if you didn't even if like you didn't use one of the steps much, it was just sort of like la la. Okay. All right. So you got, this was good. I know if you're shy, if you have more questions, you can feel free to come back to us. Any last minute questions from anyone? Going once, going twice. All right, so I'm gonna go back to the main screen. Just want everyone to know what's coming next. So this has been a great group. All of you have been fabulous. The next activity is the digital learning experience standards. Those are student behavior, student responsibility, teacher behavior and responsibility, and administrator responsibilities and behaviors on leading knowledge inventory. That's going to be step 1 of the standards. There's other ones coming after that. But for right now, we're in the middle of the challenge to pull in your lesson plans, evaluate them, and then, of course, award prizes. So thank you guys all for being with us. Tricia and Derek, thanks. Love Volusia. Thanks for being with us. Terri, thank you again for being with us. And Drew, thank you very much. Dr. Renu Singh, thank you. And Dr. Brandon Burns, soon to be Dr. Brandon Burns, thanks for being with us. And Jenny and Jill, Jenny Combs, Jill King, thanks for being with us. I'm looking forward to seeing what you guys submit. And then Wendy, Kelly, and Laura, thank you guys for helping do a little bit of show and tell so we can all make sure everything was clear. So there you go. You are now released back into the wild. This has been LeiLani Cauthen, your host from the Learning Council and the EduJedi Leadership Society. We'll see you next time if you're joining us for the Learning Experience Standards discussion, which is next up on the EduJedi annual tour. Thanks everyone for being with us. Good luck. Submit soon. All right. Talk to you later. Bye.